Steve here, and welcome back to the Friendoville channel for the final Four Lights Picard Season 1 review. It's episode 10, and once again, I've got with me, I don't know who this person is, because he has shaved all of his hair except for the one mustache.
That's right. My wife said she doesn't want me to look like a 12-year-old, so I had to keep the little upper lip toupee.
Your mustache. Not a lot of people can pull off the mustache anymore, Tim, but I say you more or less do.
Thank you. I'm right now at the weird thing. If you can see here, I'm going the Ron Swanson look. Yeah,
it looks great.
Parked and Rec. Except every once in a while you get food in there, something weird, and you can sip out of it. So
you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that,
especially right now. So I'm thinking about trimming to show my upper lip because I have a little bit of an upper lip, but we'll see.
Okay, all right.
The whole Dr. Seuss looking, twirl it down.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Wasn't there a guy in Trek in like the OG series where he had the?
Was it Harvey Mudd?
Yeah.
Did he do that? He was. I think there are many eccentrics, and I call them all Harvey Mudd. If you're an eccentric villain in the old Trek show, I just call you Harvey Mudd. Just figure it's him. And then of course Rainn Wilson played the same character, I think, in Discovery.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were 100% right.
Good stuff. I think it was Harvey Mudd. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Picard. In a nutshell, man, I thought that this did a wonderful job with fan service, pulling at the heartstrings. There were several odd leaps in logic, and depending on your philosophy on Trek technology, we might just be done with Picard, and now we just have like a crappy replacement for him. Because in this episode, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched, you should have. He died, and then there's another one that's up now.
Yeah, and I wish they would have explained. Like they put his brain on ice. Well, they said when he was dying, he said it was like a sandcastle, and he felt the sandcastle collapsing, and then he got brought back up in a digital. The cloud.
Quantum simulation.
Yeah. And so with that being said, like they captured his, but they didn't like jack in like the Matrix. I mean, they just copied his brain, and then it's an exact replica from when he died. But
okay. I don't so here's the thing, and I know our good friendo W.S. Fletcher, who literally is a professor, I believe, of like neurology or something like that. He knows the brain better than anybody, you or I, will ever know. That being said, it's Star Trek, so you have to. So this is what I gather. There were two things that I looked at in terms of, do we have a real Picard or not now? Do we have a real Picard? The idea that they wanted to get across. So I watched. There was it was just on their Twitter feed. It's probably on a website somewhere, or the YouTube channel for CBS All Access or Star Trek or whatever. But the showrunners were talking about the idea of, in this episode, we wanted Picard to die, but then we wanted to bring him back to life. The point they were trying to get across, whether they were successful or not, was that the brain stuff that makes up the human, that makes up what we are, was transferred into, not a copy, but the actual stuff is just in that new body. And it was just a way to get rid of the brain abnormality. It was death and rebirth. So I think the idea that the authors felt that their scientific reasoning was good enough, and it probably isn't, and that's what our friend seems to think, that no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But if their intention was, whatever it is in here that makes us what we are, has been placed into just a different location, then it's still that same person. It's just everything else around him is synthetic at this point.
I think they tried to do that with Data a little bit, saying, from one neuron, they can bring back Data, and they have his whole simulation from before. But that one neuron was, in theory, a way to build it. If they would have said, hey, when you died, we took out your brain, put it on life support, put it in this golem, but fix the abnormalities due to stem cell research or nanites or the MacGuffin machine, whatever you want to call it.
Oh God, that was the laziest.
So there was other ways around it that they could have done it, but they wanted to go a more technical aspect than a more biological aspect, which is fine. It just didn't come off the fact. it didn't come off as saying this is still the same Picard. We got the idea of this is Picard 2.0, still old man.
So here was the actual line of medical science techno jargon that they used. Data says, before Picard's brain activity ceased, they were able to scan, map, and transfer a complete neural image of his brain substrates to the golem. Now, the word that bugs me there is image, because when I think image, I think copy.
Yeah.
So I get that.
I have a scanner
I just
over
don't
here.
think that copy was the intention of the creators of the show.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have said, well, when anybody teleports in Star Trek, they're technically dying. But then there's techno jargon to get around that. And I think it's the Heisenberg compensators. I think that actually takes the energy that you turn into and sends it to a different place, so that same energy reconstitutes to matter, so you're not just making a copy of something.
It would have been awesome if they said, hey, we have this golem, we have this teleporter technology. Right before you died, we could make it happen. It would be
brain goo. And I think that was the point. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that was one of the criticisms that I sort of read across the Twitterverse and across the Redditverse, that it's like, so it's just sort of like a copy of, because like the real Picard died, which is still fine or whatever. I mean, it's a sci-fi show,
if
and
William Shatner can write himself back, anybody can.
So they're either going to make this a central part of the show going on and how he might deal with being a synth version of himself, or they're just going to completely forget it. It could be one or the other.
Forget it. I think it's a nice way of writing that in that aspect. They could embrace it, or they could stay away from it. And either way, I think we'd be fine.
We also got in this episode a much more complete, spiritually speaking, philosophically speaking, emotionally speaking, death of Data. And yeah, like you said, and we're going to go through like what actually happened in case for whatever reason you're only going through us to get your story.
Nah, there's a few friendos, and actually I might can I shout out a few people really quick?
Sure, I don't care.
I want to say thank you to everyone that has been a part of the Beam Me Up Friendos Twitter closed chat thing. You mentioned W.S. Fletcher. He's been our physiological guide to Trek somewhat. Stevie Bradley, he hasn't been keeping up, but he stayed in the group, and I appreciate that. My wife, Alyssa, she's right back here in the corner. I love her to death. Rob Zerver over in the UK, he's an awesome friendo with the awesome Twitter that he does music for singing to wrestlers' Twitter feeds, which is hilarious. Kicking it with Kelsey, she's been hanging in there too, even though she's not watching right now. We've been spoiling it for her. Check out her YouTube page. The how would you describe Wayne? We'll just say Wayne. We all know Wayne.
Oh yeah, Wayne's there too.
Yeah, I know. Andrew B. and Jesse. Jesse's also in the medical field, and we had a nice little conversation. I had a conversation with Fletcher and Jesse the other night where we talked about this stuff before we couldn't get this done. And those guys have been awesome. Good insight for when we do and don't talk. We try not to spoil it for everybody. Man, it's nice to get a group like, you and me are talking about it, but sometimes where, like you said, Fletcher or somebody else brings out these points, we only see it from our perspective, and then they're like, oh, hey, check out this podcast or check out this link. They might have some good insights. It's nice to have like a little roundtable discussion, and that's our close kind of group, and I appreciate all you guys sticking through. We're going to keep the group open, even though we're not reviewing anything for a while.
I like that you say it's a nice closed group. We're going to keep it open, but it's closed.
Well, if you do have any other points, though, we do have a Twitter.
Yes, we do have what is it? Real for
Real
it's
for
not
lights.
Down there right now. I didn't put it back down there.
Terrible when it comes to social media managing, and I apologize about that too. As we know, I'm still working in the world sphere that we have right now. I will try to keep up with everybody, but follow, subscribe. We're still going to hopefully be doing some more things. We got some stuff in the pipeline. We can't officially say yet but yeah, stuff more to come. I'll try to put up a poll every week, try to keep some people engaged.
Wait, you talking about our Voyager reviews?
If they happen.
I think we already said that, didn't we?
Or Serenity
We're gonna
reviews.
do that. I want to do it. I gotta figure some stuff out.
Oh, you want to do the Firefly review?
This Rona stuff. What's that? What'd you say?
I said the Firefly reviews, and you said yeah.
No, Tim. listen to me now. I
We have this
will
on camera.
never review Firefly. That's not going to happen.
Okay. And remember this: when he does, we'll make him eat his hat.
I'm gonna, yeah.
We'll eat the beanie, man.
I haven't been doing my hair because I've been putting stuff in my hair because of the Rona.
I took off my hair because of it. So
I know. See, everything's changing. It's all weird. Anyways, all right. So the episode kicked off with Elnor and Seven. They were chatting each other up on the cube. Narek, meanwhile, sneaks onto the cube.
Yeah.
And I like that there's like only one entrance on the cube, and so he has to like sneak his way past them. Sort of.
Even though everybody's in the same room, everybody could see him.
Everybody's in the same room. The XBs are just doing whatever. So then he goes within the bowels of the cube, and Rizzo finds him, puts a knife to his throat, and then is like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, good, I found them." And she's like, "Did you fuck any of them?" And he was like, "Not yet." And she's like, basically, "Come on, let's go see my office where I've set it up."
Yep.
And so he's like, "Okay." This is a very like everybody's running around doing stuff episode.
Yeah.
Next up, Picard is in his prison suite, and he's sort of marveling at a fake butterfly, and the butterfly flutters away, and he's like, "Oh, lucky you." Well, there's a little bit of foreshadowing. It's a fake butterfly, and so is he. So Soji comes on inside. To get inside his prison suite, which is just his like little quarters, she uses an eye scan. And Girardi is hanging out nearby. She's milling about, and she notices that. She's like, "Oh, that's how."
That was totally a Chekhov's gun sort of a thing, because they zoom in on kind of her using her eye, and you're like, "Okay, that's going to come into play later."
Exactly. Soji goes in and tries to basically explain her position to Picard. I guess she wants a little bit more validation, or she wants to try to get some validation from him. And he has a great line here where she's like, "We have no other choices," and he's like, "Saying you have no other choice is a failure of imagination." It's one of those great lines that they give him a lot in this episode. After that, we've got Narek, and he's with Rizzo in her office, and he's prepping to go out with a bunch of grenades and stuff.
It's explosives being tossed into a backpack.
I know, he's just like dunk, dunk, dunk. And Rizzo is, at this point, you sort of realize that Rizzo is like the most useless villain maybe ever, because she's like, "Hey, we got to do things my way now." And he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm the black sheep of the family, and look at everything I've done. Like, this is my time. I found the place. It was my plan. I'm right. I'm heading out of here." And she was like,
I flunked out of, secret society status.
Yeah.
I'm the family's black sheep. I can't do anything right, but yet I'm doing something right. So,
he's like, "I did everything in this entire series correctly, and you have done nothing correctly except like shot a bunch of Borg out into space. It was the one victory you had.
Yeah.
Like, you killed Hugh, who's like the easiest killable person there is." So she sort of just shrinks down and is like, "Yeah, you got a point. I'm kind of useless." And so he runs off. After that, let's see here. Rios and Raffi. Literally, this is like a 6-minute scene, and I have one sentence. Rios and Raffi use the magic device to fix the engines.
Yep.
Man, here's the thing. It's just as easy, literally just as easy, for him to be tinkering around down there and be like, "Oh man, how do I get this thing to work? Oh, what if you do this?" Raffi says, and then Rio says, "Oh yeah, I'll do this." And then it works.
Yeah.
You can write the techno jargon so that this thing, and then they use it later on for something that they could also come up with a different reason. What was the point of this stupid gadget?
It's a weird MacGuffin. And here's the thing, though: having technology that it looks like an ocarina for those who are, but it slips in like brass knuckles, and then you say what you want, and then these tentacles come out, and it could be used tentacles, nanites, or whatever, and it asks for your will to be done to fix things. It's a tool. So it turns into, it's like basically like a Swiss Army knife, but for wishful thinking.
It's a neurally stimulated,
and it's interesting tech, but it has no relevancy to this at all.
It's like, wait, it's just it's the most bizarrely, like, here's the thing. It's not like they wrote sometimes this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, we've written ourselves into a hole. we have this, what do they call it? The Deus Ex Machina thing?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Machina. Yeah.
Yeah. You have this thing that just gets you out of it, right? You've dug yourself into a hole. You've written yourself into a corner. You need this. This was not necessary in any way, shape, or form because Star Trek, we've seen scene after scene after scene after scene throughout the entire franchise of Scotty, like literally became a joke as how good of an engineer and how he could fix things in a pinch. Geordi, all those magnificent thinkers could get themselves, out of this stuff. This is Rios' ship.
Yeah.
And what was the point of this thing?
Because they could have said, because it seemed like the Borg cube and everything else was taken down by they could have said, oh, hey, the giant tulips in space suck energy out of cells. Here's a battery pack. Here is a giant way to jumpstart this ship. And you're like, oh, yeah. A power source. Perfect.
Yeah. There's any number of ways. That's a very clever idea right there, Tim. That's very good. They can get a chunk of flour and be like, hey, jam this in the thing. There are any number of ways. I just don't understand. Like, here's the thing. Something's broken. You can easily, very lazily write it being fixed. Mm-hmm. And that was the case for both times this magic device was used. It's really silly.
That's next season they're going to use. It's a tool that they take on their journey. And
you think it's a long-term booking here? That's possible.
It could be. There's a couple of things in here that I think are booked long-term or things that aren't answered because we're going to find out next season. Right. And it's unfortunately at the cost of the story now. Yeah. So hopefully it pays off later, but we'll see.
This was the kind of thing that it's really forgettable, and which is why it's so unforgettable, because it's like they spent so much time talking about this or dealing with it. What I don't know. It was absolutely bizarre to me that they did this. Anyways, back at the home base, the signal to signal the super sense is sort of building itself, or it's under construction.
Yeah, because Soji's sitting there with a hologram, and she's putting things together, and they're unfolding, and tink, 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 tink. So they're manually building it, and it's building.
They probably all look hilariously ridiculous before the effects are put in.
Oh, yeah.
Because they just do this. So Jurati, who, of course, as we found out in the previous episode, sided with the synths, and Sung, Aldo, whatever his name is, Data's brother, Sung, they're talking, and we see her, she's obviously like prepping herself to swerve them all. He says something about, wow, you really are like, committing yourself to this. That's what a true mother would do. And then he walks off, and she's like, I'm not their mother, asshole. And she's like, you could do this. You could do this. You could do this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, kind of saw that happening a mile away, but Alison Pill is so good that it's fun to see her take that journey. Narek is outside the La Serena, and he is like throwing rocks.
He's throwing rocks at him, just pink. And then when Rios is like, I know that noise. And I'm like, how does he know people throwing rocks at his ship?
Noise? How often are you on a planet?
Oddly specific.
Yeah, right. Anyways, he's like, hey, we need to work together. I got a bunch of explosives here. So they let him in, and he sort of explains the situation. And then Elnor shows up, and he immediately puts the sword thing to the katana to Narek's neck, and he gives him the choice, live or die or whatever. And he's like, no, I totally choose to live. Please, don't kill me. And Rios has to calm him down a little bit and say, hey, we've got similar interests here. We need to hear him out. He does that. Back to Sung, he's in his office looking at the Arcana, who has the
hummingbird pin in her eye.
Yeah. Jurati comes in, and she says, hey, I'm having some troubles with some encrypted files. Can you go de-encrypt them for me? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll go do that. Sure. So he leaves, and she's like, okay, time to enact my plan. Come here, eyeball.
Yeah. Pulls out the good eye, and you're like, oof.
It takes her forever, too. She's like in there. And it's just a close-up on her face.
Yeah, just zooming in, and she's like.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So she grabs the eyeball from Arcana, because earlier we saw that the way to get into a room is through an eye scan. So let's see here. Jurati. So then we're back to the La Serena over a fire. Elnor and Narek, it's now nighttime, explain the Romulans myth about like an ages old apocalypse type thing where two demon sisters who do things like make drums made of the skin of children, which is really gross. They basically it's like an allegory or a myth that is reflective of what's happening. So these two sisters show up and they create this a hole in the sky, and these like robot creatures come down. It's a very literal retelling of what's happening currently. And of course, Elnor and Narek both being Romulans, they're sort of
telling the story back and forth.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool little bit here. I really love, but all the actors in this are great. But Narek is really terrific. He ends up living, right?
We don't know. Yeah, we assume so, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So this scene has very big implications. This is what I told you about beforehand. So that means the premonition, the giant glowy handle thing, that means that the precursor alien, or the what would you even call them? The people that they're trying to summon.
Oh, the super synths.
The super synths sent that portal, right? To admonition. But this is different. We thought that the thing that the Romulans were talking about was ammunition. But there's an admonition, and then there's this Vulcan Romulan lore, because Narek said before Vulcans came to Vulcan, this story's been out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Vulcans have been on Vulcan since their creation, in theory, which means it has to be back. Remember I mentioned that episode where every single race was, the one chick that played the melting Odo's race that was in there before.
Yeah, the founders,
The founders. They, in theory, this comes back from them. So it might have a hint of an explanation of how the founders died, is that they created synthetic life, and then
that could be.
It could be. But yeah, this has really, really big implications because of having the admonition and this story being two different stories. And then he said before Vulcans were Vulcans, this is what was said. That, in my opinion, I think it's just, we're getting myth before time that we know.
Yeah, could be. Let's see here. So yeah, and he calls it he describes Jahalagu. Jahalagu is coming from the sky. That's what they called the thing as a result of the sisters' call. I saw a little bit of debate on this on Reddit, not so much Twitter, but on Reddit, the theory threads that they have there. And there were some people who were like, well, hold on a second. I thought that the Romulans and the Vulcans came from the same planet or something, because it was said a different way in the original series. And then somebody was like, well, that's because they got it from, like, the original series. I think it was explained from the Vulcan point of view, but Narek was giving it from the Romulan point of view, which could be two completely different points of view. So
it very well could be, but still, like the way he said it, and
so you think that the myth predates the dating of the admonition?
Yeah, well, because here's the thing: is that he wasn't corrected. So you have Narek, and you have Elnor, right? So they would have.
They're both Romulans, though.
Oh, that's right. He is a Romulan. I'm keeping thinking he's Vulcan, but you're right. He's Romulan.
Yeah.
But either way, he said before the Vulcans, right? He said before the
Romulans settled Vulcan or something like that.
Yeah, or before the Vulcans settled Vulcan or something similar to that. So and like I said, it had implications that it was beforehand. So I think, like I said, we both know that, you look at any sort of religion or any sort of faith, there's always tellings of one story, and it's spread up, 50 different ways. Mm-hmm. So this could be one of those things, but it still is hinted at that it happened before Vulcans had evolved into what they are now, and the Romulans left.
So after that, let's see here. The Romulans. Oh yeah, we get to the Romulans. There's a really cheesy bit where O says, "Finally, Destiny's time is now," or some crap like that. Like, who the hell just stands there and talks like that? Narek and the rest of the crew make a plan to get into the synth base to destroy the signal. It's the most convoluted plan. It involves a soccer ball that never goes anywhere.
They hide a bomb, one of the bombs, or an EMP inside of a soccer ball.
Yeah.
And it kind of hints back because we saw these two synths playing soccer at the beginning, and they're like, "Hey, do you play?" And he's like, "Oh, I dabble occasionally." and so they end up taking Narek. They have Narek captured with his arms behind him, and Rios and Rizzo and everybody else is there, and they throw him in there. And
Yeah, it's pretty cheesy.
oh, it is.
So let's see here. Yeah, the plan works. So they get in. Girardi goes in, and she goes to Picard. She busts into his place with Arcana's eye, and is like, "Hey, Picard, get up!" And he's like, "Why? Where are we going?" She's like, "I'm busting you out. I'm a secret agent." And he's like, "Oh, well, that's cool. Where are we going?" She's like, "We got to get back to the La Serena."
So they pass each other without seeing each other.
Seemingly.
I think it happened is that she snuck out. They snuck out first, but while they were at the front gate, they snuck out the back door.
Yeah, that could be. In any event, let's see here. Oh yeah. So then Sung finds the memory of Arcana's death, and he's like freaking out because he sees obviously Sutra being the one who in fact killed her. So you called that one right, Tim?
One of my conspiracy theories.
One of them. Good job. Well done. Sung finds the crew, and he's at that point ready to help him. He's like, "Oh, that's all I need to know. I know that Sutra's been manipulating the situation, so yeah, here we go." Meanwhile, Picard and Girardi get to the La Serena. Picard wants to convince the synths to change their minds. He's like, "I'm going to teach them like a real parent would." And so he then sits down in the captain's chair and powers up the thing. And Girardi, she says, "Make it so." And he's like, "Okay, let me see if I can figure out this thing here."
He's like, "Was I watching him close enough? Let's find out."
Yeah. After that, Sung calls out Sutra for killing her own sister. Mm-hmm. She's sort of rallied a little meeting with a lot of the synths. He goes up to her and he's like, "Man, you shouldn't have done that zap." So he zaps her.
Yeah. No, he has the on and off switch. He's like,
yeah. The crew then makes their move. What's his face? Rios has a soccer ball with a hidden EMP or grenade or whatever it is.
Something.
It zooms towards the beacon console, but Soji
it's a bomb. Yeah.
Captures it. Yeah, it was a grenade. She grabs it. Yeah, that's right. Because then she grabs it, she chucks it up in the air, and it blows up. So that did nothing. Let's see here. Picard, meanwhile, is doing his best to pilot the ship. He's really grumpy about it because Girardi keeps on talking. He's like, "Listen, I'm just trying to do this right now." Rios, I got that. 7 then finds Rizzo in her office. Rizzo is trying to use the Borg cube to shoot down the La Serena. And then they fight over it. But before we get to the outcome of that fight, we see the Romulans have arrived. They are everywhere, and Commodore O gives the order to sterilize the entire planet. They said, "We've found the synth location. It's one little place," and she's like, "Sterilize the entire planet while we're at it."
Basically a giant wall of birds of prey, pretty much.
Yeah. So Soji then sends up the giant flowers, the orchids. They fend off the Romulans for a little bit. Meanwhile, 7 and Rizzo fight up in the office. Rizzo talks some shit. She's like, "Oh, your poor little 6-year-old Annika. All she got for her birthday was assimilation by the Borg."
Yeah, which I'm like, oh my God.
That's a pretty cold-hearted line. And then 7's like, "Oh, fuck you." And she does a bro
"This
kick.
is Sparta."
Yeah, she gives a pump kick off the edge of the thing. And we can all assume, no, useless Rizzo. The one thing she is good at is escaping situations. She probably just hit her little transporter thing and she probably beamed away someplace. Because we're never seeing
Annika or 7 did say this is. Oh yeah, she said something about
She says, "This is for you."
Yeah, she said something about Borg Queen Annika or something like that. And I'm like, that's kind of has a neat ring to it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah,
right?
we'll see where it goes.
So back on the La Serena, they're zooming up to space. Girardi and Picard. Girardi's like, "If you get this done, Picard, we got to name this maneuver after you." She's like, "Wait a second." Bing, light bulb. There is the thing called the Picard Maneuver. And he's like, "Yeah, I know what that is." And she's like, "Yeah, it's where you're in one spot and then you're in another spot, but you're still right here because of the warp stuff." And she's like, "Yeah, we got to do that here. Except we just need something that'll function as kind of like a big broken mirror, and we can mirror our signatures all over the place." And she's like, "Oh, it's the doodad. Cool. It could do this." She all of a sudden knows what it does.
Yeah.
When she hasn't even been around for that thing to be used.
It is the Sonic. Okay, I don't know. Some of you guys, UK friendos, It's the sonic screwdriver of tools right now. For those who are Doctor Who fans, it just you look at it and it does almost everything.
Yeah, and so she's able to like make a bunch of like it's like a Snapchat filter basically. It's like her head everywhere, and so they decide to use that for the ship to make it look like there's a ton of that ship. Again, I feel like they could have done the same thing.
Oh, and they all have warp signatures too.
With just a little bit, with just like a little bit more clever of some writing. But I don't know, they really like their little catch-all device. I don't know what the deal with that is. Maybe the only thing I can think is maybe it's so like if I was talking to Jeff, he would probably give me a line about what's the rule? There's like a sci-fi rule or some sort of rule that says technology of the future is so advanced, would look so advanced at a certain point that if you show it to somebody 100 years in the past, it would look like magic.
Yes.
And that's what this thing is. So it's like, it's ridiculous now, but if you think that this thing might be 300 years advanced somehow, some way, because they're coming up with some really, like, this synth colony is like the MIT of the galaxy, you know? Like, they're coming up with some really cool stuff. Then, yeah, it would make sense. And they might be commenting on that, that even something like, they're so used to their tech the way we're used to our tech. If they encounter something that is normal 200 years from now, it's going to look like magic to us and to them.
So that's the other thing too. So maybe that's how she knew how to use it, because she had been working in the office. Like she'd been back, for a couple hours at least. And maybe
that's a good point. That's a good point.
But we don't know.
Yeah. So anyways, but before they actually do that, Picard signals Soji on the planet. He's like, look, I'm basically going to sacrifice my own life to show you that I trust you and that I care. This is how much I care. I'm going to basically sacrifice myself. That's why I'm up here. So then Picard says, okay, do it now. And then like hundreds of La Sirenas sort of make it look like they're coming out of warp. The Romulans all try to shoot at the La Sirenas, but obviously they're not real. They eventually do hit the real one. And once that happens, all the rest of them disappear. Picard starts having like a brain seizure. But before that happens, the beacon activates and it shoots like a very Red Angel looking type hole in space-time or wherever the synths are coming from. And I wonder if there's going to be, again, just this season of Discovery is going to be very interesting because we're going to see just how much of, if any, Easter egg crossover hints at the other series there's going to be.
So another thing that Jesse and Fletcher and me talked about, I don't want to see a tie or a crossover be forced just for the sake of making one unified universe. Because this is the first time we've had two Star Trek shows at two different time points. Because before, when Voyager and DS9 were going, they were in theory at the same time, same year approximately. We're running into different time periods now. Don't force a plot point unless you're going to write it really, really well. I don't know if they can really pull it off, but don't write something just to attempt to tie them together is my only fear.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I know, I think his name is Akiva Goldsman. I think he's sort of the showrunner on all this stuff, or he might be the architect of a lot of it. Maybe it's Rick Berman. I forget. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did start to do that to some degree. I would be shocked if they made it such an expansive thing. I mean, I don't know, man. Everybody likes the Marvel way of doing things. So maybe they're laying down some groundwork for like 2 years from now. We'll get a proper crossover. Discovery is 900 years in the future. There's any number of things they can still do with that ship, with the capabilities of the Spore Drive to encounter Picard. I would be into it if they had a cool story, man. I'd be into it. This is like movie level stuff that we're dealing with.
So again, we had this little secret meeting in the mines. I tried to invite you, by the way, but
I don't like doing things.
Busy. I know you don't. Anyway, we were talking about, I almost wish that when they get to the future, they have to go to several points in the past, do like a Quantum Leap type style.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Style season, like just one season of it. And then they go back to Zephyr and Cochrane, and because a lot of those actors are still alive, or they go back to Next Gen, or they go back to Picard, or they go, have them jump around from time period to time period, because OG Trek went back to, the 30s, or even DS9 went to 1999, if I'm not mistaken.
They went to 1996, and they also went to the original series in that Tribbles episode.
And then you have
Deep
Voyage
Space Nine
Home.
did.
Yeah.
Voyager went to 96. Deep Space Nine went to like 20. God, it might have been like 2020 or something. It was like they went to like the near future, and it was all messed up. And it might be right now that they came back.
Yeah. So I kind of hope that they go around jumping from time period to time period, or we can jump into the. Some of these actors are older. Like you look at, where the actor who plays Cisco and everything else like that. Some of these guys are older, so you might be able to see what happens to some of these characters in the future without, like, actually, they can be old man Cisco or old man.
I would love for them to. I mean, that's like I would love for them to. Let's see. Avery Brooks is only he's 71. I'd love for them to revisit Cisco. I thought that he was such a terrific character. Anyways, so they create like a hole in the sky. The beacon does, and then just as the Romulans are about to sterilize the planet, the Starfleet shows up with Riker in command. And the cool thing is, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these ships, and I could be wrong about this, but they looked like a lot. One complaint I heard was like, "Oh, these ships look the same. It'd be cool if they're all different ships." It seems like Starfleet has actually built a fleet, like a proper fleet of warships, and that's why they're
somewhat
all similar.
Streamlined, and
they're streamlined. And I think they look like they're a bit bulkier. They're sleeker, but they're bulkier. And I think that's the ablative the ablative armor from Voyager that they picked up from like. I don't know. I forget where they picked it up, like the future or something. Yeah. It was a future Janeway came back in that last episode, I think, and she gave him like a blade of armor. I keep on saying armor, and it looks like they have something like that. These are like souped up starships.
Yeah, it is really, really good. I actually got teary-eyed a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, did not expect to see Riker, and it was the right thing at the right time.
They said, hey, when they said, did anything flash in your mind when they said the flagship is hailing us? Did you think at all in your mind any idea? Or were you just because it happened pretty quick?
No, it happened so fast. I'm like, flagship. I'm like, okay, who are we going to see? It's going to be some no name or maybe one of the other admirals that we had seen from earlier. But no, I was just like, now this begs the question of timeline. Like, so he got the call. So the call probably went out. Like, we had 24 hours. The call went out. And then all of a sudden, Riker then could get in a starship, could get into suit, and then get the fleet, and then get to planet. I have a theory. What's your theory, though? How did Riker get there so fast?
Starships go really fast.
No, because it took Romulans 24 hours at high warp to get there.
Yeah. Well, the Starfleet was closer. Because
they
have jurisdiction over that. They have jurisdiction over that planet.
Well, we don't know where it is. Is it in the neutral zone? Is it in the beta quadrant? Where is it at?
Well, they have jurisdiction over the planet, so it's got to be like,
we don't know.
Closer to them. They got there really quick. What is your theory?
Okay, so my theory is, we don't know where it's at, because you would have thought that, this planet with these, it would have been a big anomaly that would have been exposed. I think when Picard was sending out saying, hey, get to us as fast as you can, he sent out what Soji did to the Macarena to get him there so fast using the warp conduit.
The Macarena, what?
The ship. I call it the Macarena. Sorry.
Oh, the La Serena.
The La Serena.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah. He's like, hey, we use these warp conduits to get here. Here's how we got here. Here's the path we took. Try to get here as fast as you can, even if you have to use conduits. However it is.
This part was like pure. I didn't really care because like this part is so pure fan service that I was like,
I really, it wasn't good because the first time I was listening to it and I heard Riker's voice because I was driving when it happened, and I'm like, I shouldn't get teary-eyed while I'm driving.
Were you just listening to this? You just listened to the episode first?
Sometimes.
Well, Tim, what the hell?
By
the way, this is a beautiful episode. When those orchids came up and were having the battle with the Romulans, it looked amazing.
Like ILM level CG.
It was off the hook good. Yeah, yes. It was really great. So anyways, Riker's like, he's like Commodore O, Commander O, whatever you go by. I am in you guys need to stand down. I am in the like most advanced, toughest, fastest Starfleet vessel, and if I would love for you to give me an excuse to take down your treacherous ass. And it was amazing. He looks great in the Starfleet uniform. Oh boy, this was so
it
cool.
was awesome. I mean, especially with the gray hair, the darker colored, the red, and then the white.
Great.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It looked amazing. It really did. And this is the first time on camera we've actually seen Will Riker as a proper. I mean, I know in this case he was an acting captain, but we knew he had achieved the rank of captain, like commanding a ship. This was awesome. This is really great.
So good.
So, anyways, the Romulans and Starfleet are at a standoff, and visually they show it. And then in the middle is the little La Sirena. And then Picard's brain starts tweaking out on him. Girardi gives him like a dose of stuff, which will just, delay the inevitable for a moment. Picard appeals to Soji and says, look, I trust in you, and I believe that you're going to do the right thing here. And then Soji's like, okay, that's all I needed to hear. She kills the beacon, and these robo snakes that are like trying to get out, they all just retreat back into the hole, and it closes up. What'd you think about the super synths having robot snakes?
It could be one of those things where it was like first contact. They need to like send in some sort of tech to either like hold down the hole or something. But the way Soji or the clone, the other Soji, the Gold Sutra, she made it seem like she's like, yeah, they'll be instantly here. And I almost was expecting like an entity to like warp in and be there. And you would think if they're that advanced, they would have beyond warp capabilities and would be able to just be like, hole opened, I'm here in front of you, is what I was expecting. Little weird, little old school science fiction tech that I didn't necessarily appreciate.
Looked like old school Battlestar Galactica things.
Yeah, or it looked like it was part of Control.
Yeah, there's that too, which I love the idea of. I have to go back and watch that Discovery stuff, man, because I got to see if there's any
season
more
two is the whole season 2 episode.
Season 2 is amazing, but I have to go back and like rewatch it because there's a lot that happened.
Oh yeah, season 2 is packed.
So, anyways, the Romulans then decide, okay, we're gonna back up now. We're gonna get out of here. They leave. Picard and Riker have this amazing little chat. He says, "Yeah, I had to hop in to help when I heard the SOS." And then he says, Captain Picard, if there's nothing else you need, I will leave the situation in your capable hands. And he's like, okay, well, I love you. Bye. And they leave. And everybody's thinking to themselves, they have medical facilities on those ships, probably. Can't they like get them over there and like help them out? Maybe do something. But Picard made the decision. He said, no, go ahead, Will. I've got it under control. So obviously he didn't want that to be the case. So Soji beams him and Girardi down to where they are, and he ends up dying in the arms of Raffi. But before that, he says bye to Elnor, which is like a really like tear-jerking moment. This whole scene
Elnor,
is like
I'm glad you're here. I'm just like, and somebody complained that he died around like the new cast and not like loved ones.
I hate that complaint because he's known Raffi for longer than the series was, the Next Generation was on. Elnor he knew as a child. He had bonded with everybody else in this short period of time. I mean, I was totally fine with it.
When you die is a point in your life. You're not going to be around the same people when you die from who you're in
theory like 30 years prior.
Yeah, 30 years prior. So I didn't mind it because it was an accident. And then he told Picard to leave, and he told Riker to go leave. And Riker's going to be like, hey, I'm going to back up Picard the way I can with Starfleet. I'm going to make sure everything's taken care of. So he would have, in theory, taken off and be like, hey, we're taking care of business. So
I think I think Picard understood that this was, number one, it's terminal. There's nothing anybody can do about it. This sort of speaks to my point of, why couldn't Starfleet have helped him? Because there's nothing they could have done about it. Yeah. And Picard knows, if I'm going to die, I'm fine it being here with these people. And Riker would probably like overreact, And I don't know that Picard would have wanted that moment to be with Riker, because I don't think he wants to put that. His whole thing this season was, I don't want to put my troubles on my old crew.
I don't want to be.
They need to go in
anybody.
peace.
Yeah.
They need to be at peace. So, let's see here.
And then he whispers and he says, Raffi, you were quite right. And we don't
he
know
says
what
you were quite right. And she says,
what
about what? And then he passes.
Yeah.
So then we fade to black.
But
Seven and Rios share a drink of some local alcoholic beverage that tastes like crap. And they talk about breaking promises to themselves. Rio says, I swore I'd never do this again. And Seven said, yeah, me too. And he's like, wait, what are you talking about? And she basically says, acting like I'm judge, jury, and executioner, killing somebody because they deserved it. And Rio says, well, I promised myself I'd never let another Starfleet captain into my heart and then watch him die. Yeah. And Seven said, well, was it your fault that happened? And he said, no. And she said, well, then I win, because she totally brogue kicked Rizzo off the thing.
Totally.
Let's see here. So then the butterfly, so that the fake butterfly sort of comes in and floats by and takes us to another scene. And this one is simply Elnor crying in the arms of Raffi's lap. And this was great because it was Raffi getting to do the one thing that she desperately wanted to do this season, and that was be a mom.
Yep.
And that was a really beautiful moment. And Elnor's just crying his poor little eyes out.
She's sitting there on a log, just kind of looking out as the sun goes down. And Elnor walks up and just kind of sits down and kind of gives her those eyes. And she just breaks down, and she immediately, head on the chest, giving her a hug and say, I know, it's okay, being motherly, doing what was instinctive. And it was one of the best character moments between both of them, because you have, this young man who's lived a very sheltered life, and the only father figure we're assuming he's probably ever had has just passed. Mm-hmm. And Raffi losing one of her best friends, even though they were recently joined back up, but still, an old-time friend that you meet back up with and then passes away, it's still a hard thing to lose. So yeah, Raffi getting that motherly moment, it's heartbreaking, but it's so good too.
Yeah, it was so good. Let's see here. Then the butterfly sort of flitters, and we are with Picard in sort of what looks like a study, but everything's gray in it. Mm-hmm. It's it's like a study. There's like a fireplace there. There's like a desk or some books. This wasn't like the Chateau office, was it?
It kind of looked like it. Like picture the Chateau office, but just painted all gray.
I didn't know if this was like literally meant to be the Chateau.
I didn't get that, but it was all okay. Because there's no windows either. We didn't see a door until the very end.
Right. Yeah. There was just it was like in a weird floaty room. Like you get a long shot and like part of the roof or the ceiling isn't constructed, and outside is a space. So it's sort of like this weird study room floating in space.
Hard to tell.
And Picard is like, whoa, what is this? And Data comes in and he says, we're in a complex quantum simulation. And Picard asks Data if he's dead. And he says, yes, sir, you are. They talk about their last memories before they die, because Data says, I know I died, but I don't remember death. He's like, are you wearing the same clothes you wore when you died? And Data was wearing his movie clothes, and Picard was wearing the clothes that he died. He was like, yeah, I am. And they talk about their last memory. Does Brett
still fit the same outfit that he did when he played Data?
What's that?
When Brett played Data in the last movie, you think he still fits the same outfit, or do they have to make it a little bigger, a little smaller?
So I don't know, because when he stood in profile in one of the last shots here, his midsection didn't look that big. Now I don't know if there was if they gave him.
When he played Sung, he didn't look too bad either. But
no. So I don't know.
It was kind of interesting though.
Yeah. No, I know those questions. I always get a kick of those questions, because the uniform did look a little on the weird baggy side. It didn't look as taut as.
You also get those questions of when a show ends or a movie ends, so oh, what'd you take off the set? And I just walked out with my outfit.
Yeah. So they talk a little bit about death. And they talk about how Data is basically a copy. He was taken from a neuron of a copy of his memories from when the memories were transferred into B4. So obviously he's not going to remember his death.
Yeah.
Picard reveals that he wished he could have said that he was sorry that it was Data that died and not him. Yeah. And Data says, well, do you regret giving your life for the others? When you sacrifice yourself? He says, not for a second. He says, well, then why would you imagine that I would regret giving my life for you?
Yeah.
And he said, let's see here. Picard. Oh yeah, Data says that he was constructed. He was his consciousness as it is here was constructed by his brother AI Soong. And Picard says, I didn't really like that guy very much. And Data says, yeah, he's an acquired taste.
I think he said all Soongs are an acquired taste.
Yeah. And he said, and Picard says, I really regret not saying. And Data says, you mean that you loved me? And Picard sort of nods yes. And he says, well, there's a not insignificant part of my memory that knows that. And that should be of comfort to you. And he says, thank you, Data. It is. It's just a really just wonderful. It's like the perfect closure between these two. And it's like I can watch this conversation. I went back and watched it a couple times, and
it's just like the card game at the beginning of the series too. Yeah. I mean, awesome bookends.
Yeah, really. So he says before you leave, I want you to do something for me. And Picard gets waylaid, and he says, before I leave, I'm leaving. I thought you said I was dead. And he says, no. He said, well, you are, but before your brain activity ceased, they were able to scan, map, and transfer a complete neural image of your brain, of your brain substrates to the golem. And then the door behind Picard opens, and Picard starts to walk out because it's time to wake up. And he says, wait a second, Data, you asked me to do something. What would you like? And he said, when you leave, I want you to terminate my consciousness. And he's like, you want to die? He's like, yeah. He says, to be human, he says, I don't want to die. I want in that one moment to know what it is to be mortal, because it's our mortality that makes us human. Because what good is friendship or love or growing old if you know that it's going to last forever? It's the mortality that makes it precious. And so he says, okay, I'll do that, Commander. He says, goodbye. And he says, goodbye, Captain. And it's just an absolutely devastatingly loving scene. And I mean, there's all sorts of weird questions you could ask. Was Data just chilling as a consciousness in that weird gray study for 14 years or for however long it took Soong to make him? There's a number of questions that you sort of have. But again, the writers have a point here, and the point is to give Picard the closure with Data that he really needed in that movie when he died.
So I agree, and I think some of it can be explained. So if we go, eventually they do this like little memorial, and they start unplugging parts we can assume as memory chips of it being plugged in.
Yeah, the simulation.
RAM, and the RAM isn't active unless it's put in something and being actively used. Once you unplug it, and they're probably going to break them, it's going to be gone. So I'm sure they were using him because without the complete neural net, it's all just ones and zeros and codes and everything else like that. So I'm sure that they were using that, not the matrix, but the program that was Data, and they couldn't make it a condensed net. It was just like the cloud of multiple computings. And so they used the cloud of Data to upload Picard, and that's how they had their connections. I really think there's a part of them that didn't know how complete Data was in this simulation.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I'm sure some of them didn't. And that's why at the very end, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, Data was active. At least we have a copy, but we don't know exactly how well it is. And we plugged it in and tried to get to work. Picard probably like, it was working, but he doesn't want this. So.
Yeah. That's actually a really good extrapolation, Tim. That's actually really good. So yeah, as they're doing their little ceremonial plugging of the cord, if you will, Picard is giving a eulogy, and like honestly, like it's a beautiful eulogy. I don't remember much about it because I'm just so focused on Data. It starts out number one. He turns on.
We need to go back one. We need to go back one scene because I went way far ahead. Picard wakes up and he's in his new body.
That's right. Yeah, he wakes up. Yeah.
He wakes up and he was just like, "Hey, am I me?" Or he says, "Am I me?" And Soji's like, "Yes, you are." You. Or he's like, "Am I real?" And he goes, "Yes, you're very real."
You understand the parameters of new Picard.
Yeah. And so they like, we took out all the brain abnormalities, and he goes, we gave you the life expectancy you were going to have. And he goes, the life expectancy you're going to have, is it going to be 10 years, 20 years? And they all kind of
no. They said we gave you the normal life expectancy. He was like, it would have been nice if you could have added 10 years or 20 years. He wanted more.
No, I thought it was. I thought it was. He was asking for a hint of how long he was going to last.
No, he wanted more.
Oh.
And they revealed how old Picard is. He's 94.
Yeah.
And we know that as of 40 years prior, 30 years prior, Dr. McCoy lived till he was at least 137. So Picard might go till he's 140, 150.
There's also implications too. If you look back at the Bakula played who? What was his?
Archer.
So in the 2009 movie, Scotty mentioned something about Archer's prize-winning beagles being teleported, and he can't find it. That's why he got put on the ice planet. And that Archer would have been like 140 years old at that point in time. So there's a theory that Archer was the teacher, and he teleported one of Archer's dogs to get sent to the ice planet.
Oh, I'll have to rewatch that. I never knew that.
Yeah, listen to it. It's one of those weird, obscure things. It's like, well, is it Archer? Is it Archer's son? But it's definitely a reference to Enterprise.
Wow. That's cool. That's a character I wouldn't mind them revisiting just to maybe clean it up.
Oh, yeah. Bit. Old Man Archer, I think it'd be great for a Discovery thing, just to try to make the character better light in Trek fans.
Yeah, Enterprise was such a crap show.
Yeah. So anyway, we're back at Data, the eulogy or the funeral for Data.
So Data, you see, they cut back and forth between Data in his study preparing to die, and Picard actually giving the eulogy. And Data in his study, he's wearing a smoker jacket, and he's got like a brandy or something, and he turns on his record player, and it's Blue Skies, and it's a really lovely rendition.
Who's singing it?
Sung by Soji.
Yeah.
Sung by the actress who plays Soji, Isa Briones. I don't know. I think it's Isa Briones. And it's lovely. It is absolutely lovely. It's really fantastic. So as Picard gives his eulogy, Data sits down lays down on a couch, and as Picard pulls the RAM sticks, the data sticks, Data visibly gets older in the face. So he's understanding mortality now.
Older, and then the next stick. Yeah.
And then Picard, when his Next Generation uniform shows up next to Data to guide him through. So this is all Data sort of processing death and how we'd all like it to be. Very peaceful with a loved one next to you. Your father basically next to you. And that was Picard in this case. And he holds his hand. And Data's face is nothing but contentment and understanding and humanity as his face gets older. And then Picard pulls the last one, and Data and the Picard within the simulation, they both fade into dust. And it's absolutely just the most beautiful scene.
Yes. Very good.
After that, so then the crew, they're all back together on the ship. So what did I tell you, man? Elnor ain't going nowhere. They even brought Seven along with them.
Yeah, Seven and well, here's the thing. Okay, so we see, it pans out and we see everyone back together. We see Rios and Seven kind of holding hands as they play. There's a Vulcan game.
No, Raffi. It was Raffi and Seven.
Yeah, Raffi and Seven.
They got close quick. I wonder if there was a deleted scene where they sort of like made googly eyes at each other.
I have a theory about that. What's the game though? It's you know what I'm talking about. There's that board on the center, and then you see Rios, and you see he kisses what's her face's hand, Girardi's hand. Everybody's there, and then all of a sudden, then we also what
was it? Calto?
I think so. Alyssa, the Vulcan game with the setting of the pieces. No clue. Somebody will tell us down in the comments.
Calto. It's Calto.
Calto. Okay. Yeah, and everybody's back, including Soji. Soji shows up too, and she's back. So we see pretty much where everybody's hints at a couple of romantic relationships. Elnor's there, and we still don't. Last time we see Narek is when he's being held when the bombs being
tackled by the synths.
We don't know what happened to Narek. I made a joke of maybe Narek's like bound and tied and gagged in Soji's closet on the ship. Like I don't know what they did with him.
That could be.
But that'll be season 2. There's a couple of things that were obviously sprinkled for season 2 with like Seven and touching it. I have a feeling that they're going to be together, but they're going to be together, and then it's only going to be hinted at in the next season because they're going to be broken up by then, and that's going to be a cause for conflict. And then at the beginning of the next season, they're at odds with each other. They're like, oh yeah, I don't like you. I gave my heart to you, and then eventually they're really going to end up liking each other. There's going to be.
You're probably right about that, because that's a lot more interesting than just they're lovey-dovey.
Yeah,
they're both very complicated characters. Yes, with
and I also think next season, I think we're going to see a Romulan young man, and there's going to be a story about him losing his virginity, which I'm assuming. I think there's going to be some interesting...
Oh, you think Elnor's going to get some next season? Yeah, I can see that.
I have a feeling they could go several different ways. There's a lot of things they could do, and they left a lot of doors open, and I really, really like that.
I'm really looking forward to it, man. I mean, the one thing is that the ship is technically a charter ship, but you'd think that they're starting off next season they might maybe be on the way to sort of dropping people off, and then adventure ensues. Who knows? Next season I want Worf and I want Geordi and maybe even Crusher, and I'll be happy.
We're gonna get Wesley instead.
I'd be fine with Wesley. I'd be totally fine with Wesley. I'd be okay with that. I want to see what happened to the Romulan Tasha Yar.
Yeah.
Although she pitched a fit on Twitter when they did when the Next Generation crew got together to sing Troy Happy Birthday over Zoom. Denise Crosby responded to it and said, "Hey, why wasn't I invited?"
Ouch.
Because you quit the show after a season.
Yeah.
Tasha.
Oh, Tasha is related to someone that sang one of the Blue Skies, if I'm not mistaken.
Bing Crosby?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so yeah, the scene ends with everybody there, and Soji's like, hey, I'm free since they're legal now, since you're a synth now. And
yeah, that was a great bit. I'm glad you mentioned that, because she said the synth ban has been lifted and she can go where she wants.
Yep.
And he says, oh yeah, so can I. Now Picard is now a synth. Now he's basically
and then he's like, where do we go now? And like, can we go now? He's like, yep, engage. So we get the one last engage, and we're off for season 2.
Yeah. So I thought it was really good, man. I thought it was terrific. Oh yeah, and then I think we're gonna get he officially invited Whoopi Goldberg back for season 2.
Whoopi Goldberg back, so that's gonna be fun. I think they're gonna get everybody back at least for one circle, as long as everybody. I still think we're gonna see a thing from Q. I really hope so.
I hope at some point we do, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, season 2 will be very interesting. We'll be here to go. Go ahead.
So there's a couple. So I have a proper. I'm going to put you on the spot, but I kind of want to come back to this in a couple of weeks and do a retrospective with a few other people, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I think we can get Jesse and Fletcher and Wayne, and we can get everybody. It's a little bit of opinion, because we're going to
say yes, and then you said Wayne.
I said Wayne. That'll get a little bit to digest. We've had several friendos kind of reach out and say, "Hey, I would love to do something like the Lowdown show." He gave us a shout out on his show. Nick Cap, Philip Rodriguez. There's been a lot of people that have mentioned in comments and YouTube and stuff like that have asked us questions and been very, very proactive on social media, not only in the comments of the show, but on social media. Like I said, again, thank you guys for I'm going to try to keep this group active. And then once we kick into reviews and some other stuff, but again, this show is so, we're going to have a little bit to talk about until season 3 of Discovery. And so
when does that start anyways?
I don't know, but that teaser beforehand was interesting.
Freaking looks amazing.
She had her hair kind of in in dreads, kind of off to the side.
Well, have you watched like the first proper trailer for it?
There's a trailer for it?
Yeah, it came out a while ago.
Oh, no. Because again, they also have the Federation flag being planted, and it's all.
You should watch it. It looks crazy. It looks absolutely crazy.
I definitely will. As soon as we get off the call, it's the first thing I'm doing. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up, but I know you're doing, or just doing, Discovery for 4 Lights. But like I said, hopefully we get into those Voyager reviews, or. But yeah, I kind of want to get a few more friendos just for like a miniature, just a relax, round table discussion, just a little more content for the channel. But yeah, this season, it gives me hope. It gives me hope for a better franchise going forward, because we haven't had Trek. Like, last time we heard there was going to be the Quentin Tarantino movie or Star Trek 4, and both of those kind of fell through as far as I know. So this is
somebody is writing.
got it.
There's the script is being written for the next Star Trek. Simon Pegg seems to think that it's not going to be the cast that they had, which I think is smart. Like, it didn't end up making Star Trek, honestly, like, it belongs on TV. I'm not sure why they'd want to do any more movies because they just don't make money. Like, they spend a shit ton on the movies and they barely make their money back.
2009 did pretty good though, didn't it?
That was the only one I think that did anything like, I mean, I think like 2009 probably made money back. The second one probably like turned a profit, but like I think the third one didn't. And it's like they're just not that. It doesn't have this. That's the thing about doing it on TV, where you have the possibility of a shared universe. You could do stuff that's what the fans really want to see, and you just don't have the Star Trek. You can't do it just doesn't work in movie form the way Marvel does it in movie form. It doesn't work for Star Trek.
Very true. Unless they do one-off stories, like some of those one-shots are really, really good. But like those the Trek shorts, Children of Mars is so good. And if they could find a corner of the universe where you could make a movie, or they have a spin-off movie that's kind of a one-off, but you're right. Everybody wants to see the Kirks. Everybody wants to see the Picards. Everybody wants to see...
Well, why wouldn't you just if you want to do like a spin-off story where nobody's involved, that has even less mainstream appeal. That's why you'd put it on TV or on just the internet.
Yeah, webisodes. That's what it's all going to become. Yeah, well, especially they're trying to sell CBS All Access, so why not? I just wish though that they would sometimes do... Okay, like I said, I'm getting into my geekdom here, but Doctor Who is notorious for having annual Christmas episodes, and
all British TV shows do that.
But I'm so sorry about that. But the Christmas episodes for Doctor Who are almost movies, like they're an hour to 2 hours long. They tell their own confined stories, and some of the stories even swap off to the new generation of the Doctor because they recast because of regeneration and also their MacGuffin.
Yeah, but those are all done on TV.
They're all done on TV, but they put a little bit of time, a little bit of extra money into these episodes. So if they did something like that in between seasons, a story, a plot that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, if they're not going to do a beginning and an end per episode, if they're going to do a one-off story, give it like an hour and a half or something like that and tell one story in between seasons. I would prefer that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't do it on the big screen. You do it on CBS.
No, you would do it on the streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of like on the big screen, like everything, dude. That's why I think that like when you're the synth race being somehow related to Control, perhaps. I think that's entirely possible. Once you start weaving these stories, people are going to start eating them up if they're starting to intertwine.
You really think it'll be that popular if they're all intertwined?
Oh, majorly. Are you kidding? Absolutely.
I almost don't want to see it to happen because there's that much of a time gap.
People geek out when like Picard talks to Janeway in Nemesis, or when Riker shows up on Deep Space Nine. Those are like the most popular things when you start crossing them over.
I don't know. It's almost like it's forced, but that's the thing is that was all around the same time. We're talking about and Generations was a movie about the time span, and I think it is too much fan service, in my opinion. Generations.
Not if it's done right, man. If it's done right.
Generations done right?
It's debatable. I mean, look, the idea of hey, you want to pass the torch? I think that's a solid idea, but that's also a much different thing than what we're talking about.
I know. Well, but you have the two biggest captains that everybody knows of meeting, the melding of the minds. Now we have the two different generations of Trek meeting. Like I said before, I don't want a story that it interweaves just for the sake of interweaving. I want it to make sense in the narrative. But
yeah, of course. I mean, that could be said about anything. I don't want another season of Picard if it's not of just Picard if it's going to be bad. I want it to be good.
Well, yeah.
I don't want them to do it just to do it. I want them to do it because they have a story to tell.
Yeah, I don't think Patrick Stewart would do it if it was really
I think
bad.
that too. And I don't think he would do a crossover thing if it was going to be bad. I mean, if they went into it with the best intentions.
But he did do Generations.
Going into it, that was a good idea on paper. And then apparently what William Shatner wouldn't do or would do, was a completely different story. So I don't think anybody would disagree that but they had to do it in order to get there.
Didn't William
look? I'm not going to say Generations is a good movie. There are parts of it that are very enjoyable, but like the Shatner stuff and fist fighting on that was stupid.
Can I drop a pipe? Can I drop a pipe bomb on you?
I
think Insurrection's better than Generations.
I've seen Insurrection like once, maybe.
Insurrection felt like a next gen series. It felt like a next gen episode, but longer in full movie format. That's kind of what we wanted.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. But look, nothing will beat. Look, man, nothing will beat. You could be right. It could be a better movie. I'll completely give you that. Nothing will beat seeing the Enterprise lit like that for the first time. Seeing Picard's Ready Room lit the way it was lit. For cinema, for movies, the way we see it now on CBS All Access, by the way, because they like that stuff like they're movies.
I know I'm going to crucify in the comments. I know what's going to happen, but that's okay. Like I said,
Generations was not a good movie.
Yeah, the villain was very. Don't get me wrong, the actor. I can't think of the guy's name.
Oh, I actually see. Here's the thing. I actually really liked, to a point. I liked the general idea. I liked. What was his name?
Yeah, I can hear his voice clear as day too.
Something or other. It was Alex from Clockwork Orange. It was Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah.
I like him. I liked his character. I loved that they had Lursa and Bator in there. Lursa or Bator died. I think Lursa died recently.
Really?
The actress who played her. I think there were things that I really, really liked about that movie. It's just the Kirk stuff. The Kirk stuff was so lame. And that was supposed to be the big selling point of the movie. And I'm sure there was probably a way they could have done it properly, but they didn't. That being said, I thought the stuff with the Enterprise crew, with the Next Generation crew, I thought was actually pretty solid.
Yeah, Data swearing for the first time that we saw on screen.
Yeah,
that's very funny.
That was a foreshadowing of things to come now, where people are saying, "The fucking hubris, shut the fuck up." Okay.
You're swearing again, man. Wait, was there any swearing in this episode? I don't know if there
What's that?
Was there? I think somebody said there was swearing in this episode. I don't know.
Oh, in the finale, yeah. Rio said, "I said I wasn't gonna fucking do it again, and I did it."
Oh, that's right.
Girardi said, "Asshole."
The F-bomb's pretty big. Like I said,
What's her face? Rizzo said, "Did you fuck anybody?"
Really?
She said that. Yeah, she said, "Did you fuck anybody?" And he says, "Not yet."
I'm pretty, like I said, when it comes to my stuff, I'm pretty conservative. I don't like, because I want a Star Trek show I can watch around my kids, or say, hey, my little brother comes over. Sean's 20. Actually, Sean turned 20 yesterday. But
happy birthday, Sean.
I want to watch a show that I can watch around the whole family and not offend really too many people. And that, unfortunately, Trek isn't something I'd really go out and be like, oh, yeah, you really need to watch Picard. And then somebody drops the F-bomb. You're like, oh,
Yeah, I watch, this is the nerdiest thing I'll ever admit to. Literally.
On the podcast, let's go.
I used to watch Deep Space Nine with my mom in high school.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Man, but you have those memories. That's the thing.
No, I know. It's fine. I don't care. I was getting late.
That's a wonderful memory. I didn't watch. So I'll tell you
Super
this.
Super nerdy
though. 20 years ago. How long have we been married here? 13. So 20 years ago, for I think it was a anniversary gift or something for my parents. Somebody bought bootleg VHS tapes of all of the original series for my dad.
Oh, that's rad.
And so we sat and watched them all together, just popping them in a VHS player, and they had 2 episodes per thing. And that's how I got into Trek, was like I said, 25 years ago when we got them for Dad. And that's where I watched the original series, because I wanted to get in something that my dad got into, but yet I was a stupid kid in high school, and I was like, okay, it's kind of dumb, kind of cheesy. And then when I married my wife, she really got me into Trek, and I watched all of it with her. And so, like, growing up, Trek wasn't, my dad liked it because he watched it as a kid, but Trek wasn't a part of my life until after I got married. So I'm somewhat newer to Trek. But yeah, some of those memories, man, it's interesting to hear too, like how people get introduced to it. Because some people are like, oh yeah, it came on TV, or like, oh hey, it was what everybody was watching, or hey, it gave me hope for the future because I saw somebody that looked different on TV. Like, we know Trek's always been somewhat controversial. The first interracial kiss was in the original series on American television.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so, anyways, on that note,
long story short.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Maybe at some point in the future we'll see you down the line.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Steve. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, sure. Anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll talk to you probably tomorrow, Tim.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. We got to find a good schedule to do those Voyager reviews. And yeah, I don't know, man. I've been thinking about the future of like the Four Lights in general. If I want to take it to like its own channel so I could, do some other stuff here.
Well, you have the time now,
Seemingly I have the time. So, yeah.
Did you see also one last thing, tiny little thing? Somebody has an AI algorithm out there that is turning the Voyager episodes into 4K. And it looks gorgeous, but the CBS probably isn't going to throw anything at it. But they took a scene where the doctor is like scanning somebody's brain, and it is the old aspect ratio, but it looks so good. So it's interesting getting technology out there. I doubt we'll ever see a 4K release or anything else, but it looks.
I saw they did a 4K release of the Michael Keaton Batman. It wouldn't surprise me if they went back and remastered that stuff. I mean, it's another selling point for All Access. I know Picard is like it broke all the records for like streaming. I mean, it's CBS All Access. What the hell were people going to watch in the first place? But it broke like a ton of records. So
yeah, why not? Why not take a little bit of time, a little bit of money, put the money into up-resing it, and have because they up-resed was it Next Gen and the original series at least to 1080p. Why not up-res everything to 4K and say, hey, you could only get the 4K streaming version on CBS All Access?
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.